Week's main news. Protest meeting forcefully expelled in front of Iranian embassy. The social and political situation in Azerbaijan doesn't pave way for free parliamentary elections. Preliminary hearing on Ililif Ataliyev's appeal conducted. Adnan Hajjade's appeal to be considered after September 15th. Proposals on the media coverage of pre-election campaign introduced. Serious violation of law revealed in the distribution of compensation to residents in flooding zone. Legislative proposals on the media coverage of the pre-election campaign were introduced in the press center of the Institute for Reporters' Freedom and Safety on September 3, 2010. IRIF's chairman Emir Hüseyinov opened the event and informed that the proposals were made by Media Rights Institute in the framework of the Free Airwaves project. Hüseyinov added that IRIF also has additional proposals which will be included in the packet of the proposals that will be sent to the relevant bodies. He gave detailed information about IRIF's proposals and stressed their necessity. Media Rights Institute project coordinator Khalid Agaliyev gave general information about the proposals and emphasized their importance. He said that the requirements of international agreements joined by Azerbaijan and the practice of other countries were studied while preparing these proposals. The Media Rights Institute representative said these recommendations were put forward in accordance with the Recommendation 15 of the Committee of Ministers of the European Council to Member States on measures concerning media coverage of election campaigns. The duration of the pre-election campaign was specially touched on in the proposals. According to the latest amendments to the electoral legislation, the pre-election campaign commences 23 days before the voting day and finishes 24 hours before the voting. It would be useful to increase the duration of the campaigning period in order to stimulate public activity and provide more suitable opportunities for the candidates to publicize their programs. Further, there is serious need for clarification of the instances regarding the duration in the legislation. It would be more suitable to start the pre-election campaign 45 days before the election day, notes the document. According to the proposal makers, media coverage of election campaigns should align with the principle of justice, balance and impartiality, exactly as they are reflected in the legislation. According to current legislation, free airtime was limited to 3 hours a week. That time is divided equally between TV and radio in public television and radio broadcasting company. Free airtime should be increased to 12 hours a week. Allocation of 6 hours of free time by public television and radio broadcasting company should be ensured. Clauses in STV's legislation that ban free airtime should be removed, and the remaining 6 hours of free airtime should be ensured by STV, the document says. The authors of the document also say that the time of using free airtime by running political parties is set at 7 p.m. The candidates must be free to choose the time. Setting the time of free airtime between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. would be more appropriate in order for many voters to watch it, the document adds.
The socio-political situation in Azerbaijan doesn't pave the way for holding free and fair parliamentary elections, says a report unveiled by the Center for Election Monitoring and Democracy Education on September 2nd. Unfortunately, it is not worth discussing the democratic atmosphere on the eve of the elections. 9 protest actions have been conducted since April 2010. Most of them had cases of administrative detentions and physical pressure. Freedom of assembly is restricted not only to street actions but also to the events held in closed spaces by civil society. Specifically, some NGOs' events could not be held in Ganja, Yevlak, Nakhchivan, Sheki, or Mingechevir because of this, said the Center for Election Monitoring and Democracy head Anar Mamadli during presentation of the report. He also mentioned several serious problems regarding freedom of speech and conscience and lack of political pluralism in TV channels. The detention of journalist Einula Fatullayev and bloggers Emin Milli and Adnan Hajizadeh doesn't support the democratization of the pre-election situation or increase the public's trust in the election process, Mamadli emphasized.
On September 2nd, under the chairmanship of Judge Mirpasha Hüseyinov, Baku Appellate Court held a preliminary hearing on journalist Einula Fatulayev's appeal. As the journalist requested, the hearing was postponed to 11 a.m. September 7th in order to give him time to familiarize himself with the protocols of the first instance court hearing. In the preliminary hearing, the journalist also stated that the shirt he had worn during the previous hearing was taken from him in the detention center. The phrase, "some blood for oil," was written on the shirt. Vatuliev also asked the judge why he had rejected the requests from the international organizations to meet with him. The judge said the letters had not been replied to yet. The journalist appealed against Garadagh District Court's July 6 decision of imprisonment for 2.5 years based on the accusation of storing drugs and demands his immediate release. In 2007, Yanulia Vatuliev was sentenced to 8.5 years in jail for threatening terror and other accusations. However, the European Court on Human Rights issued a decision on his innocence and immediate release. The Azerbaijani government has been refusing to comment on this decision.
On the 2nd of September, in the Baku Appellate Court, under the chairmanship of Judge Salikhan Mirzaev, blogger Adnan Hajizadeh's appeal was considered. The blogger, who is being held in prison number 14, was not brought to the hearing. Representatives from the prison did not come to court either. State plaintiffs said that the case should not be considered without the participation of the representatives of prison, because their participation is very important. The blogger's lawyer, Isahan Ashurov, said that he will be abroad from the 9th to the 15th of September and requested to reschedule the next hearing to another date. The lawyer also requested to transfer Adnan Hajizadeh to Baku Investigative Prison temporarily. The consideration of the appeal regarding the blogger's early release has not been rescheduled to a definite time yet. The appeal of blogger Adnan Hajizadeh regarding his early release is not accepted in the Garadagh District Court under the chairmanship of Judge Rufan Mursalov. Bloggers Amin Milli and Adnan Hajizadeh were arrested regarding the incident that took place in a Lebanese restaurant on the 8th of July in 2009. Although they were beaten, they were sentenced to 2.5 years imprisonment and 2 years imprisonment under the charges hooliganism and inflicting intentional minor bodily harm. Another event was held in the Press Center of the Institute for Reporters' Freedom and Safety in the framework of the Free Airwaves Project on September 2nd. The proposals on media coverage of the election campaign were introduced in the roundtable discussion organized by the Media Rights Institute and IRFS. These recommendations were prepared based on the current legislation, as well as 2 years of electronic mass media monitoring. Both the monitoring and the preparation of recommendations were carried out in the framework of the Free Airwaves Project, which is financed by the European Commission. Khalid Alagilev, the representative of the Media Rights Institute, recalled the amendments made to the election code. He also stressed the importance of an inclusion of a special clause to the election code on media coverage of election campaigns. The reduction of the election campaign to 23 days was also included in the amendments. Perhaps it is suitable for countries with developed democracy and an election system, but is not suitable for Azerbaijan. The duration of the campaign should have been extended up to 45 days. Agarliev suggests free airtime should also be regulated and it must be increased from 3 to 12 hours. Because 3 hours of free airtime doesn't satisfy a number of political forces. In addition, free airtime is only provided by public television, even though its financial capacity is much smaller than that of AZTV. IRFS Chairman Amin Husseinov emphasized the importance of the mandatory inclusion of paid airtime for each TV channel's programming during the election campaign. He said that even thematic TV channels are engaged in the political campaign and therefore must be engaged in political advertisements as well. On September 3rd, a group of residents of Sabirabad's Polad Tugay village, who were affected negatively by flooding, were able to become familiar with a part of the compensation list for their village in the United Administration of Locations under construction under the State Supervision Agency for Construction Safety of Ministry of Emergency Situations. Seymour Hajiev Anvar became surprised upon seeing his name on the list. The list was grabbed from him when he said that he had not been compensated. The list shows that I have received 1,600 AZN in compensation. However, I didn't even get a kopeck, the Polad Tugay resident Seymour Hajiev said. He said that the list was taken from them when this fact was revealed. Another resident of the village, Bagan Rasulov, said that his family and another 13 families, many of whom he is related to, were not included in the list of families for which new houses will be constructed. Our houses were engulfed by the flood. The soldiers pumped the water out of our houses many times. We lived in the tent camp and were given food. But now they are not building a house for us, nor are they giving us compensation. However, there are families in the village who will be given new houses, even though their houses were not engulfed by water, he noted. The residents say they will appeal to the public prosecutor's office regarding what they witnessed. Operating with the purpose of obtaining information about the residents' complaints, the Objective TV correspondent appealed to the United Administration of Locations under construction. At first, an employee of the administration stepped into the chairman's study, but later he said that all the officials were in the flooding zone.